An election in the UK turns to the political right, all as the nation of Hungary cracks down on cultural Marxism in their universities. In this video, we're going to take a look at the political earthquake that happened in the UK's special election yesterday, how the nationalist-populist government in Hungary is effectively ridding their university system of left-wing activists disguised as professors, and how in light of Spain's recent turn to the right, we continue to see a patriotic, populist Europe rising like never before. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Wonderful to be with you. As always, we are your antidote to fake news as we each and every day analyze current events in light of super awesome conservative trends in these crazy and turbulent times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, a little heads up here. We got a big announcement coming your way next week, and this involves some changes going on in my life, and it's going to involve changes in this channel. So make sure to stay tuned for more to come on that. Before we dive in here, make sure to click on that link below and head on over to my special website for our good friends over at My Patriot Food Supply. You know them well, right? We can't wait for an emergency to happen before we respond to one. And we know that no one makes preparing for an emergency more ridiculously easy and affordable than our good friends over at My Patriot Supply. They're the best. Their food kits last up to 25 years in storage. They include breakfast, lunches, and dinners. And if you act right now, you can save $50 off a full 4-week emergency food supply when you click on that link below and go to my special website. So do not wait. I got my food supply. You know that, right? So make sure you get yours. Click on that link below or go to preparewithsteve.com. Save $50 off your very own 4-week emergency food supply today. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. We've got some very exciting news coming out of the UK. Yesterday, May 6th, Britain held what's called a bumper election or a by-election, which takes place outside the normal parliamentary cycle. And the turnout was extraordinary. The BBC is reporting that the turnout represented the biggest set of votes since the December 2019 general election, which swept the Conservatives into power. And as of yesterday, we're seeing that trend continue and continue in some pretty stunning ways. Voters in the Labour stronghold of Hartlepool in the northeast of England in Durham County, voters shocked pundits there by defecting en masse and voting for the political right. Conservative candidate Jill Mortimer beat Labour's candidate by nearly 2-1 in the vote count. It was a stunning defeat for the Labour candidate in what has historically been one of the most reliable Labour counties in the country. In fact, the election was triggered precisely because of the resignation of the previous MP or member of parliament, who of course was a member of the Labour Party, the left-wing party there. Now, the seat is now flipped, and it has added already to the immense Conservative majority in parliament led by Prime Minister Boris Johnson. So what accounts for this extraordinary political defection, you may ask? Well, unfortunately for the leftist Labour Party, the same political paradigm shift that so brutally slaughtered them back at the polls in December of 2019 are still operative today, just as we predicted they would be. Back in 2019, the UK held a nationwide snap election when the Labour Party suffered its worst defeat since the 1930s, okay? The far-left Marxist Jeremy Corbyn, remember him? He was the leader of the Labour Party. And under his dithering leadership, Labour lost in regions that have been Labour safe seats for decades. We saw very much the same dynamics operative here in the States in 2016 election, where the Democrats lost over 200 counties that had voted Democrat in every presidential election the last 30 years. In Britain, just like in the States, you had the collapse of what they call their red wall. Okay, so just in case you're not aware, in Europe, red is the color of the Marxist liberals, okay? Blue is the color for the good guys, the conservatives. It's, of course, the other way around here in the States. So Hillary Clinton had a supposed blue wall of states that voted Democrat in every election since the 1980s. That's Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Well, in Britain, they have what they would call a red wall. It's the same thing. And, of course, just as Hillary's blue wall collapsed, so did Jeremy Corbyn's red wall. So otherwise, reliably Labour seats in Darlington and Rother Valley and Bolsover and Blythe Valley, they all turned to the right. They turned to the Tories, and it appears for the exact same reasons as the Democrats lost Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, and Pennsylvania in 2016. labor lost the white working class. In taking the sharp turn to the left and embracing cultural Marxist identity politics and open borders and globalist norms, labor alienated their traditional voting base of blue-collar white workers. And in doing so, the pro-Brexit conservatives got a whole new voting constituency, just like the Republicans did with Trump in 2016 and in 2020. And so what we saw yesterday was simply the continuation, the extension of these conversion dynamics where the white working class continued to abandon the left and embrace the right. Now, I know Boris Johnson has been a bit of a disappointment. Frankly, that would be an understatement. He did deliver on Brexit, but it seems that's about it at this point. But regardless, it does appear that we're seeing a major realignment in British politics, where once safe Labour regions have defected and embraced the political party that wants nothing to do with identity politics and cultural Marxist radicalism. Now, as of the making of this video, the first results of the Scottish elections yesterday are starting to make their way in. COVID restrictions has severely delayed election returns. But as things stand, it looks like the pro-independent Scottish Nationalist Party has picked up seats. If you don't know, the ruling Scottish National Party wants to hold another referendum on independence by 2023 if there is a pro-independence majority in Scotland's devolved parliament. Prime Minister Johnson said no to that. He has zero tolerance on Scottish independence. He has, as I understand, completely ruled out allowing any possibility of such a referendum to take place. Regardless, it does look like, as of the making of this video, that the Scottish Nationalist Party picked up 5 or 6 seats, which is an impressive showing for sure. Scotland is going through a bit of a liminal period right now. Scotland is very left-wing in general in its sentiments. They're very pro-globalist. They're very pro-EU. They did not like Brexit. They were hardcore Remainers during the whole Brexit vote. So the Scottish Nationalist Party has been doing politically well during this rather ambiguous period for Scotland, as they seem to be still trying to get their footing there after Brexit and, and so on. So, of course, we'll see how things develop there. But we have another very exciting development going on in the nation of Hungary, and this is coming from Reuters. Hungary's nationalist conservative dominated parliament passed legislation this week that requires the setting up of foundations to take over running the nation's universities and cultural institutions. Now, most universities in Hungary are state universities, and this move is seen by all parties as a clear move to bring the university system under the direct control and influence of the nationalist-populist forces that are dominating Hungarian politics. Left-wing critics, of course, are up in arms over the bill, which is reorganizing how the state and universities interrelate here. The foundations running the universities would be all appointed by the conservative supermajority that dominates Hungary's government through the Fidesz party, what's known as the Fidesz party. So the left is just whining and complaining that this is nothing more than Hungary's right wing taking over the universities. It's horrible. It's horrible. Now, what's so interesting here, if you just sit back and think it through, isn't it interesting that the left never has a problem with the state intervening if the issue is all about social justice, race, and equity, right? Have you ever noticed that? They never have a problem with the state intervening in the midst of anything if the issue at hand is racial inequality. They will advocate quite literally anything. They will advocate basically destroying the Senate by getting rid of the filibuster. They will advocate packing the courts. They will advocate adding new states to the union in order to have a supermajority in the Senate. They'll advocate getting rid of the Electoral College. They'll advocate virtually anything in order to intervene to rid the world of social justices. But the moment that the political right says, you know what? These colleges and universities in our nation, they're under our jurisdiction, the state's jurisdiction. And these so-called centers of higher learning are all going fully woke. They're indoctrinating rather than educating. Maybe we need to step in and fix it. The moment that the right talks like that, all we hear from the left is that the government has no right to intervene. Academic freedom. Yeah, right. Like when you're enslaved to Marxism, that's free, right? Academic freedom. But just put the shoe on the other foot. What if these universities were teaching the most hardcore anti-woke, nationalist-populist, traditionalist, curriculum imaginable? What do you think the political left, if they were in power in Hungary, what do you think they would be proposing doing today? Well, Just look at what Pelosi and Ocasio-Cortez and Biden are proposing right now. There's your answer. Now, this is not the first time Hungary's conservative supermajority has intervened in the realm of so-called higher education. The leader of Hungary, Prime Minister Viktor Orban, the fellow right here, of course, he made headlines just a couple of years ago when he effectively ousted George Soros' Central European University from Budapest. Again, leftist liberals were utterly outraged, which seems so strange today given their penchant for cancel culture. But alas, Orban was relentless in his campaign against Soros, and his left-wing university had been effectively banned from the nation of Hungary. Now, the Fidesz party, which is Orban's nationalist-populist party, they enjoy a supermajority in Hungary's parliament. Now that they've kicked out Soros's university from Hungary, now they're trying to kick out any Soros-influenced cultural Marxism in Hungary's university system. Now, this is but the latest in the nationalist-populist transformation of Hungary. We did a video last year, you're going to really love it, on how Orban's government was revitalizing the arts and theater in Hungary, which again had leftists going mad at the time. Interestingly, Hungary's government spends more on culture and the arts than any other nation in Europe in terms of its gross domestic product. Hungary spends around 3.5% of its GDP on the arts. Most European nations hover around the 1%. Now, the Orban government is taking the role of actually recovering Hungary's culture very seriously, and they've announced that they set up a national cultural council headed by a government minister with the task of setting priorities and directions to be followed in Hungarian culture. And the important point here is that the minister would have a role in hiring and firing particularly theater directors at institutions that receive state funds. Again, the key in all this is that these reforms throughout the nation are all aimed at rooting out any trace of globalist Marxist leftism in Hungary and implementing a robust nationalist, populist, and traditionalist agenda in their culture for generations to come. So now we're seeing the Hungarian government step up and revitalize the university system, kicking out all the woke cultural Marxists that have been infesting their colleges with indoctrination rather than education. And I'm sure we're going to continue to see amazing things coming out of conservative Hungary. So there you go. Again, some very good news coming out of Europe. In the shadow of Madrid electing a nationalist right coalition, we have some of Britain's most loyal leftist districts defecting to the political right, all as Hungary begins cracking down on cultural Marxism in their universities. Not a bad week, for sure. Now, before you go, make sure to check out our latest video. I just uploaded it on how an Ivy League professor absolutely crushes critical race theory, calling identity politics criminal. We take a look at a video blog that's gone viral excoriating identity politics. We look at how this professor has been critiquing political correctness now for decades, and how his standing up to leftist ideology in the classroom represents the beginning of a massive backlash against critical race theory that's just getting started. You're not going to want to miss it. So make sure to click on the link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.